Greetings, ladies and gents of the courtroom. It is I, your Honorable Judge, Scythe Jackal, and today I want to do a different kind of video compared to the rest of my content. So, as we all know, the Wii U and 3DS eShops are shutting down soon. In May of this year, they made it so you can't use credit cards on it anymore, and in a few days, by the time this uploads, August 29th, it's not going to be possible to use Nintendo eShop cards anymore, which means you can't add funds at that point. And so the only way to purchase games at that point would be through download codes online, on like Amazon, I think, or something. And by March of 2023, it will be no longer be possible to make purchases at all. Now, this was announced back in February, I believe. And as we all know, there was controversy behind it when Nintendo released a statement, and a lot of people kind of feared because this was pretty much putting a huge dent in video game preservation, which is kind of a key factor in wanting to keep playing games. But today, since my channel has a huge focus on not only video games, Nintendo, and Since my channel is not just focused on those things, but also Fire Emblem, I decided to focus on an aspect that the closing of these two stores, when they do close, how it will affect playing Fire Emblem. So let's look at the Switch, the Nintendo Switch. There are 4 Fire Emblem games on the Switch. Fire Emblem Three Houses, Fire Emblem Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, and Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. But here's the thing with those entries. 2 of those are mainline, while the other 2 are spin-offs, and one of them is no longer available on the eShop because Nintendo decided to close it out. Not close it out, they decided to stop selling the game digitally when they did the same with Mario 3D All-Stars, but that might be for another video. We saw Nintendo do this in March, where they took Mario 3D All-Stars and Shadow Dragon the Blade of Light off of the eShop for basically no reason. Probably just to hype up pre-order sales or whatever of Mario 3D All-Stars, but that's not the point. But now with the Wii U, with the Wii U and the 3DS, despite how many people despise the Wii U, which I have a video on a retrospect of the video of the Wii U coming in the future, so be on the lookout for that if you want. But those 2 consoles, if you want to get into Fire Emblem and you don't want to emulate, those are good choices to get. Those are good systems to get if you want to play those games. Fire Emblem. Okay, so let's look at the Fire Emblem games available on the Wii U. Fire Emblem The Blazing Sword, which came out in 2003. Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, all available on the Wii U eShop. I think they're all I think Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is $10, while the other 2 are like $8, so those are pretty good deals. And now we look at the 3DS, and it's a bit more than that, but also a little different. Because the 3DS never got any releases of older Fire Emblem games, surprisingly. But if it's one thing for certain, it's that modern Fire Emblem thrived on the 3DS. On the 3DS, we got Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates, which is basically 3 games, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. Not counting Warriors, that is 5 mainline Fire Emblem titles on one system, which just went to show how popular the series was on the 3DS. I think Awakening even boosted the sales of the 3DS itself back when it first came out, so that's a plus. But here's the thing. The eShop is shutting down soon. You won't be able to buy these games on either eShop with a Nintendo card soon, in like a few days. And you won't be able to get them at all next year in March when they just shut it down completely. And you can't buy games anymore with download codes. Now, at this point, that means these games are hard to access. And also, it means that your way of playing them becomes a little bit more difficult. Because here's why. So, reading like, okay, sorry. I saw something from Nintendo stating that Fire Emblem Fates would actually be discontinued a month before the eShop shuts down. So that's a negative, meaning at that point, you won't be able to buy Fire Emblem Fates Revelations, which we'll get into in a bit. But like I said, with those 3 Fire Emblem games, no, with all those Fire Emblem games, as soon as the eShop shuts down, you will not be able to buy those games or play them. Fire Emblem, the Blazing Sword, and Sacred Stones might be a bit different because you could probably easily emulate those games if you have a good computer. And I think they're also cheap, just like if you buy a used Game Boy Advance and you buy cartridges. I think they're not that expensive. I'm not sure. But Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is a different story. That game is rare, and I think it's pretty valuable. And then we get to the 3DS games. And there's another talking point I want to get into those games. Their DLC. Fire Emblem Awakening, Fates, Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, and Warriors all have downloadable content. Which pretty much means even if you buy the game physically elsewhere, you will not be able to buy DLC. This probably doesn't sound like a huge deal because, the games already have enough content at that point. But there are some things locked behind this kind of, like Fire Emblem Awakening introduced new maps, more difficult maps, new maps, I think, some special interactions, and, that's pretty much it. You don't really have to buy them, but they're pretty cool. Fire Emblem Fates introduced new maps as well as a new storyline featuring the second generation of Fire Emblem Fates. Not like a complete storyline, but it's like 5 maps, just a small story. It's nothing huge. But still, that is unfortunate. There's also the Anna on the Run map, which is the only way you can get Anna in Fire Emblem Fates. Not that you probably don't really want it that much, but it's up to you. But that just goes to show they locked a unit behind a DLC map, which even if you buy a physical copy of Fates after March of 2023, you won't get Anna. And then it goes for Echoes, which I think you can buy gold for Echoes or character packs, maps. I'm not sure. I never looked into it, which I should have. But Fire Emblem Warriors has 9 DLC characters, although Warriors probably doesn't matter, probably has the least importance when it comes to this topic because that game is also available on Switch, like I said, and you can just buy the DLC there, and it's probably a better version considering the 3DS is less powerful than the Switch. But my point coming across is that after March 2023, if you are somebody who happens to play 3 Houses, like you're a newer fan, and you play 3 Houses, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. Maybe I should try out the other games. And you find out, hey, maybe I have those old systems, the Wii U and the 3DS. I'm like, maybe I can go see if some of them are on those consoles. No, you won't be able to because you can't buy them anymore because Nintendo shut down the eShop, which prevents you from accessing them, which also means that not only can you not buy them, but you might have to resort to other methods of playing those games. Well, I think like the 3DS games at least. And like I said before, physical copies for games are getting expensive. More and more expensive. I think Fire Emblem Awakening is like more than $40 now, which, that's not terrible, but that's still not great. And once the eShop shuts down and physical copies are nearly impossible to obtain, either due to rarity or due to absurd prices, because we all know that these games are going to be more wanted and going to be more rare in physical form, and they're going to become more expensive. So it's like scalpers or just people in general are going to ask for absurd prices for certain games. So what is the solution to this? How can you get into Fire Emblem even after these shut down? Here's what you can do. You can download ROMs, actually, if you want, and you can emulate some of these games. If you have a good enough computer, I bet you can. Or Or you can probably wait to see if Nintendo brings over the Fire Emblem games on the Switch. However, I don't think that's likely. Nintendo seems to be having an approach to the Switch where they're bringing back older games and you can play them, but a lot of them are locked behind the Nintendo Switch Online subscription, which, depending on which one you get, whether it's the expansion pack or the original, for the original pack, you're $20, you get SNES and NES games. For $50, you can get those, and you can get N64 games. And according to the internet, which of course we all know is the most reliable source, not really, by the way. Sorry, bad joke. Anyways, there's been signs that show that the emulation on N64 for Switch Online is not great. Now, I'm pretty sure Nintendo has been improving it, and it's definitely a step up, but it definitely still could be better. Now, the problem with these older games being locked behind the subscription service, I think, is a huge issue in the entertainment industry today. Subscriptions, everything, a lot of things, like, we don't even buy stuff anymore. People just rent stuff. We pay the $7.99 a month for a streaming service for movies and shows, but guess what? You don't own those movies or shows. You're renting them pretty much just to watch them. As soon as that subscription service is gone, as soon as that streaming service goes down, like, what if it goes down? Where do all your movies and shows go? You don't have them. Same with music. A lot of people just rent music now through Apple Music. And same with video games. People don't buy them often anymore. They just get, like, Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, and they just play older games. But once those subscriptions are gone, once they're over with, you have no chance of playing those games you once had access to. This is why emulation and game preservation is important. It's important to preserve games because some of them will just be gone forever if you don't. Now, another thing is that this is not just an issue with Fire Emblem. This is an issue with Nintendo all around. They are not the best when it comes to preserving their games or allowing people to play it. When the Wii shops shut down in 2019, from these shops to shutting down, from the lack of support for older games, other certain older games on Switch, such as GameCube, it really just shows that they really don't seem to want to provide all of the fans, not all of them, but the fans with their huge history of games. And even when they do, they lock it behind a subscription service instead of just letting people buy the games separately. And another reason I doubt the Fire Emblem series, at least the 3DS games, the reason I doubt those would come to Switch is because porting a 3DS game, which is a handheld system, to a console like the Switch could be rather difficult. And this goes for 3DS and DS games in general, because a lot of them utilized the microphone, which is not a part of the Switch, the stylus, which, there's touchscreens on the Switch, but you can't just, it's different compared to the DS, because the DS and 3DS had two screens, which meant the bottom one was for tapping with a stylus, and the top one was meant for showing, like, kind of what you tapped or what was going on. That was basically how the 3DS worked, but that's not really possible on the Switch unless you change the HUD, change HUD menus, change positions, change whatever. That's how you could port it over, but I highly doubt they're going to. As for the older games, such as Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, Fire Emblem Blazing Sword, and Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, I think it's possible if we get Game Boy Advance on Switch. But if we don't, then oh well, just go emulate the games. And this is, like, not just a problem with these games. A bunch of other Fire Emblem games haven't even left Japan. So most of the people who are playing, like, Thracia or Genealogy of the Holy War, they're most likely, if not entirely, playing them on an emulator and a computer, because those games never released outside of Japan. Now, that's not the point. Now, that's not really the point of the video, but that just goes to show that once the eShops shuts down, your best bet is probably to emulate if you want to play most of the series. And Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is another example of this. This game has never been ported to any other Nintendo system, and a physical copy of the game retails for over $250 or more. Or 200, I forgot. But that's just the point I'm trying to get across. This isn't meant to be a rant video. I'm just saying how I think it's kind of ridiculous that they're shutting down the eShops, especially since they're not providing fans or just people in general with a better way to play certain games. I'm sorry if this was more of a rant video. I really don't want to make rants because I think they can be negative at times. I feel like they can be useful at times too, but I'm not going to make a lot of these. I just wanted to say how if people want to get into Fire Emblem, these shops shutting down probably not going to be the best for those who want to get into the series unless they emulate. Thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this small little video. I have more projects coming in the future. Not many of them have been planned yet. I mean, no, they have been planned. What am I saying? I just contradicted my last statement. But I'm starting to think I'm going to have to script videos, because if I'm going to do more videos like this with discussions, I ought to script them more so that way I don't make as many mistakes with how I talk. But I'm hoping you all enjoyed the video, and have a great day. Scythe Jackal, out.